Tonight, the sanctity of a synagogue shattered by vandalism as the world marks International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Shock and sadness in New Brunswick's Jewish community.
As we see around the country now, seems to be a reality.
Holocaust survivors reflect on the rise of hate at a time of war.
It is still with us, and it's rising its ugly head.
Lower immunity, higher risks.
It attacks, and it attacks pretty quick.
Concerns over a contagious comeback of measles. Plus, quenching the thirst for collectible cups.
I got a Stanley!
The craze and the crime over these trendy tumblers.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. On this Holocaust Remembrance Day, the world stopped to reflect on the atrocities committed against Jewish people during the Second World War. A somber tone this year as conflict in the Middle East rages on and countries see a surge in anti-Semitism. Just this morning, a troubling discovery at a synagogue in New Brunswick that has the Jewish community speaking out. CTV's Tony Grace reports.
At a Fredericton synagogue, shattered glass and a shattered sense of security on this Holocaust Memorial Day.
To happen today makes us think that makes me think that is planned and it was attacked and is to hurt Jewish people on this sorrow day.
Police still trying to determine if this damage was a targeted hostility or something else.
New Brunswickers, look, we're better than this. We don't condone this in any way, shape, or form.
The synagogue's vice president feeling traumatized.
We moved here 15 years ago for the reason is for the anti-Semitic attack to my daughter in UK. So I never thought this is what happened in Fredericton.
The incident putting acts of hate in focus as the world remembers the 6 million Jews and others killed at the hands of Nazi Germany before and during the Second World War.
It is still with us, and it's rising its ugly head with incredible forces.
Holocaust survivor Andy Raty's family was separated in Hungary when he was 2 years old.
We lost over 100 family members, including my father, whom I never knew.
Recent incidents targeting Jewish communities and the October 7th Hamas attack in Israel stirring up emotions and conviction.
My sacred duty is to continue to teach against hatred.
A message echoed in Poland today, where Holocaust survivors marked the 79th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau camp. And in Germany, where Chancellor Olaf Scholz said his country would continue to carry responsibility for a crime against humanity. Our democracy is based on a simple commitment, he said, never again. Tomorrow, many Jewish groups across Canada will gather to say the same thing, including in Fredericton, where the public safety minister said they had another meeting today to discuss security to ensure the community feels protected. Heather.
Tony, thanks for this. And you heard from Germany's chancellor there. Thousands of Germans also protested today against a far-right party. Its members were recently caught meeting with known neo-Nazis to talk about a plan for mass deportations. Only a day after the UN's top court ordered Israel to prevent genocide in Gaza and called on Hamas to release hostages, fierce fighting continued as more countries paused funding for a UN agency helping Palestinians who desperately need it. Here's CTV's Kamal Kuramali.
As the death toll continues to grow in Gaza, so does the desperation for aid. But now a growing list of countries are temporarily pulling their funding to the enclave's largest relief agency. After allegations surfaced, 12 staff members were involved in the October 7th attack by Hamas in Israel.
The UN is committed to investigating it has terminated the employment of these people.
Canada, the U.S., and Australia already paused funding for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Today, Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, and Finland also suspended their financial support. Israel's Foreign Affairs Minister says the aid group must be replaced, while the agency's Commissioner General calls the pause on funds immensely irresponsible.
The need of the people in Gaza and everywhere is a necessity for continuing living on this earth.
The aforementioned facts and circumstances.
On Friday, the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to prevent genocidal acts in Gaza.
Which means that Israel is constantly going to the ICJ looking over its back or carping from the sidelines on its conduct of the war.
Since yesterday, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 170 people have been killed in Israeli strikes. The Palestinian death toll now surpassing 26,000. While families of the hostages held by Hamas grow restless, continuing their calls for their loved ones to be released. And although for now Canada has paused funding to the UN aid agency in Gaza, it says it's waiting for the outcome of the investigation to determine its next steps. Heather.
Thanks, Kamal. In response to the war, Iran-backed Houthi rebels launched another attack today on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. A missile scored a direct hit on an oil tanker. It took 20 hours to put out the fire. No one was hurt. Also today, U.S. forces carried out more airstrikes on Houthi targets. A public inquiry into foreign interference in Canada's elections is set to begin Monday. At issue, whether the last two federal elections were influenced by other countries and if Ottawa is doing enough to tackle the issue. CTV's Colton Prale explains.
Monday kicks off a major public inquiry looking into reports of election interference in the 2019 and 2021 elections. But experts say the problem exists even at the municipal level.
They try to control those lower level election first and then get the resources from those lower level and use those resources to influence the election at the higher level, like at the federal level.
In an interview with CTV's Question Period, the Prime Minister's outgoing national security advisor warned foreign interference is likely to play a larger role in elections globally.
Misinformation, disinformation, deepfakes, artificial intelligence are going to affect those, or potentially could affect those elections, and it's critical that we be aware of what's going on.
Along with searching for evidence of the impacts of foreign interference, the inquiry will gauge the government's response and its ability to deal with potential future threats. Some politicians who have been accused of having ties to Beijing have been giving full standing in the inquiry and an opportunity to question witnesses and review classified information, something that worries some advocates.
We're essentially handing over the playbook to how to repress individuals who speaks out against the Chinese state, to individuals who may have connections to the consulate.
This week, the inquiry was expanded to include interference from India, but there are concerns that could negatively impact diplomatic relations after India recently began cooperating in the investigation into the killing of Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil.
Our ability to function in the Indo-Pacific does rely on having a healthy relationship with India.
Before the inquiry can begin reviewing any evidence, they first need to determine which information can be shared publicly. A task so complex, former Special Rapporteur David Johnston recommended avoiding an inquiry altogether. Heather.
All right, Colton, thanks for this. The government is also grappling with a recent court ruling. Its use of the Emergencies Act during the so-called Freedom Convoy was not justified. Today, almost 200 vehicles traveled to Coutts, Alberta on the 2-year anniversary of a blockade at the border crossing there to protest COVID vaccine mandates. Immunizations have kept measles cases under control for decades, but now the World Health Organization is warning that the potentially deadly virus is spreading rapidly among children as vaccination rates fall. CTV's Annie Bergeron Oliver has more.
What should be a rare virus is rapidly spreading in Europe, where measles cases increased nearly 45 times last year compared to 2022. The WHO attributing the alarming rise to an accumulation of susceptible children who missed routine immunization doses during the COVID-19 pandemic.
It is unforgiving because whenever there is an immunity gap, if it finds it, it attacks, and it attacks pretty quick.
Measles is a highly contagious virus that is most common in children and can have severe and fatal outcomes. But vaccination rates are falling. The U.S. Center for Disease Control estimates nearly 61 million vaccine doses worldwide were postponed or missed during the first 2 years of the pandemic.
People might think that it no longer is a threat and no longer a threat to their own personal health. But because it is so infectious, we need to maintain really high levels of vaccination.
In Canada, endemic measles has been eliminated, though cases do continue to be imported. The latest data shows that in 2021, 92% of all 2-year-olds had their measles vaccine, with rates ranging from a low of 85% in the Yukon to a high of 98% in PEI.
We're in trouble because we're seeing lower rates of vaccination in various communities. It's one thing to think about Canada as a country of 40 million people, but of course we have to think about other smaller communities.
The WHO says countries should be aiming for 95% of children vaccinated, but that is a high bar many countries face barriers to reach.
In Africa and in some parts of Asia, a mother is faced with the challenge of, do I get food for the children today, or do I actually take them for vaccination? And quite often, the tummy wins.
The 2-dose vaccine is nearly 100% effective and offers lifetime protection. Since 2018, 1 person in Canada has died of measles. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
There are weather warnings once again tonight in BC. Heavy rainfall has prompted flood advisories for the south coast of Vancouver and much of the island as a series of atmospheric rivers start hitting parts of the province, with hundreds of millimeters of rain expected. CTV's Abigail Turner reports.
A soggy start to Saturday as parts of British Columbia begin seeing the first round of an anticipated atmospheric river.
It's actually a series of atmospheric rivers, so they're not all the same one.
A parade of rainstorms could bring up to 90 millimeters of rain by Saturday night to much of Vancouver Island and parts of the south coast, including the North Shore Mountains.
It's going to be some soggy skiing for the next few days anyway.
And while the wet weather has already started, officials say the biggest part of the atmospheric river is expected to be felt on Sunday into Monday. Flood watches have been issued as the persistent heavy downpour continues, potentially until Wednesday, where parts of Vancouver Island and the North Shore Mountains could see up to 300 millimeters of rain.
Metro Vancouver is also prepared and ready to stand up our Emergency Operations Center if significant issues arise.
Temperatures are warmer than normal, increasing the potential for flash flooding and landslides. Grouse Mountain Regional Park has closed due to hazardous trail conditions.
Keep away from river edges and shorelines. High flow, riverbanks may be unstable and more prone to collapse. So please stay away, keep young children and pets away.
On the island, BC Hydro has moved reservoir levels down around the Puntledge and Campbell River systems.
Water levels can rise really quickly and flows can change pretty dramatically. And so our message to the public would really be just stay away from those waterways right now.
Despite a dreary forecast, there is a glimmer of light.
Today is the first sunset after at 5 p.m. Daylight hours are getting longer. Spring will be here soon enough.
A hopeful sign that sunnier, drier days are ahead. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
Coming up, dividing lines.
That's lawlessness like we've never seen.
Don't just build the wall, build both walls.
Republicans stir debate over the Canada-U.S. border. One of the biggest names in professional wrestling, Vince McMahon, has resigned over sex abuse allegations. Mr. McMahon! The co-founder of WWE was named in a lawsuit filed by a former employee, Janelle Grant, accusing him of trafficking and assault. McMahon denies it. And Donald Trump responded tonight to a verdict he defamed a woman accusing him of rape.
Look at yesterday. Look at all this crap that's going on.
The former U.S. president was back on the campaign trail in Las Vegas. Yesterday, a jury ordered him to pay writer E. Jean Carroll $83 million. His rival for the Republican nomination, Nikki Haley, seized on Trump's legal trouble, saying it's a distraction from issues like inflation and the border. No matter who wins the Republican nomination, there will be discussion of a northern border between the U.S. and Canada. Campaigns have revived security concerns, looking to gain every advantage. CTV's Rich Garton reports from the border city of Windsor, Ontario.
Northern border wall rhetoric is once again ramping up.
Then you look at the border. That's lawlessness like we've never seen.
Don't just build the wall, build both walls.
Donald Trump has said the northern border is, quote, not exactly doing too well. And last week, Nikki Haley, the only person still contending against Trump in the Republican primaries, said, "We don't talk enough about the northern border. The southern border is in terrible shape, but 500 people on the terrorist list. The terrorist watch list have come through the northern border." According to stats from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, 484 individuals on the terrorist watch list were apprehended at the Canada-U.S. border in 2023, compared to just 80 at the border with Mexico.
The effort to do better always is at the forefront of the folks who do protect our borders.
Just ask John Adams.
That is absolutely crazy.
Adams lives in Florida, but summers for 5 months a year at his cottage in BC. He made it his mission during the pandemic to get the border open, and is once again on a quest to keep it that way.
No wall, no wall, no wall.
Adams hopes it's empty rhetoric, but is ready to take up the fight through targeted ad campaigns to snuff any talk of a northern border wall.
The people will revolt against this. When you start messing with people's lives, it's just not right, and I'll fight for them again.
Most folks are focused on the things that bind our countries. Let's not let some rhetoric get in the way.
Marta Liardi Anderson of the Cross Border Institute at the University of Windsor calls it the politics of politics, and says instead of putting up walls, focus on building bridges like this one.
It is a significant once-in-a-lifetime piece of infrastructure. That is the focus. Key infrastructure that is built to purpose, built for trade, built for the movement of people and goods, with state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art security features. That is what is going to deter the bad guys and keep the trade flowing.
Rich Garton, CTV News.
Still ahead, thirsty for trouble. One collection of this social media status symbol catches the eye of police. For hockey players, it's the Holy Grail, but lately so is another kind of Stanley Cup. Yes, we mean the ever-popular Stanley-branded drinks tumbler, a trophy of its own for collectors. So sought after, California police even arrested a woman for stealing $2,500 worth. CTV's Jean-Pierre Bushman explains.
Oh, that glorious feeling of sipping from the coveted Stanley Cup. No, not that one. I got a Stanley! The Stanley Quencher, a water tumbler almost as large as the hockey trophy, but bigger online these days.
Y'all, I have entered my hydrated era.
And fans of this trendy cup are pretty scrappy, lining up at stores south of the border for special colors. This week, police caught a Sacramento woman packing 63 stolen Stanleys in her car. While Stanley Quenchers are all the rage, said the local police, we strongly advise against turning to crime to fulfill your hydration habits.
Really, this cup has been a hot item for several months now. It has existed for many, many years.
The century-old company Stanley has been making thermoses for construction workers for decades. When it first issued the Quencher, it was far from a hit until working moms running a popular blog took a liking to it.
They had a keen eye for what colors might work for their audience, and they were right.
The company began issuing Instagram-friendly pastel colors and driving demand the way Beanie Babies did, releasing limited editions.
It was in a fire yesterday. It still has ice in it.
Adding to the legend, this online post of a Stanley surviving a car fire. Now this status symbol of sorts sells for around $60. Eco-friendly and reusable? Well, many are building collections, spending money, it could be said, like water. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
And hitting the water today, the world's largest cruise ship, now at sea on its maiden voyage. Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas left the port of Miami on a week-long trip. The ship has 7 pools, a skating rink, and dozens of restaurants, all spread over 20 decks, the length of 4 city blocks, with room for 10,000 people. After the break, the cat that wouldn't come back. A snapshot of hope in the search for Sophie. Finally tonight, a reunion months in the making. A Vancouver Island woman desperate to find her missing cat lost deep in the woods. Then came help and hope from a friend. Here's CTV's Adam Sawatsky.
Before Shelley Hall would go for a walk in these woods, Sophie the cat would have jumped into her carrier.
Because she says, "It's time for our walk, Mama."
Sophie, the confident kitten, had grown up to be an adventurous cat.
I tell her that her job is to bring joy, and she does.
Sophie inspired smiles during their daily walks for almost 2 years, until that day an exuberant dog chased her away, and after searching all day, the cat wouldn't come back.
It was the worst day of my life.
Until Shelley found herself experiencing the worst weeks of her life. After putting up posters, posting on social media, and scouring the 565-acre park daily from dusk until dawn, there was no sign of Sophie.
It does get harder and harder to continue to believe you're going to find her.
But then a former neighbor, Marilyn Hanner, stepped up to help.
There's nothing else to think about. You have an animal in distress, you jump in.
Along with Shelley, who was searching for her pet 20 kilometers a day on foot, Marilyn bought 4 trail cameras to donate to the cause.
If you have the means, why wouldn't you?
As weeks turned to months, the camera captured countless other critters. But then one day, while looking through the footage, a picture of a blurry tabby inspired definite hope.
It's like, oh my God, that's Sophie, and she's alive and she looks well.
And 3 weeks later, thanks to crucial help from the animal rescue group Rome, who captured the cat, Sophie and Shelley were reunited after more than 3 months apart.
She just purred and rubbed against us, and she was so happy to be home. Look at this beautiful day.
Well, Shelley and Sophie are back doing daily walks in the woods, except now the cat's attached to a leash, while her mom's thankfulness can't be contained.
I feel gratitude very easily now for so much, right?
And for so many, including Marilyn, who never gave up helping and hoping.
Until you know for sure, you just can never give up.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Colwood.
That's it for us tonight. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.